Okay, I gave you guys a little bit of instruction yesterday about changing division to multiplication, so we're going to practice it right now. Okay, for the first problem, go ahead and write down 6 times negative 5 divided by negative 3 times negative 2. So the first thing we're going to do is we're not actually going to perform any properties yet. We are actually going to put all of our numbers over 1. Now, I'm not using up an entire box for this because it's technically not a property, so I don't want to waste a box. So now when we actually do the multiplicative inverse, okay, the only thing we're going to change is that division dividing by negative 3, or in this case, divided by negative 3 over 1. So I'm going to keep all the fractions the same, but when we get to that point in the expression, that is what I'm going to change. So let's keep it as 6 over 1 times negative 5 over 1. Now here's where we change it. Division becomes multiplication, but when I do that, I have to take the reciprocal of negative 3 over 1, which is 1 over negative 3. Okay? And then finish with the times negative 2 over 1. Now I'm going to be using dots, I'm going to be using parentheses as well as the regular multiplication symbols throughout the whole entire practice, so please don't get confused. So this property was our multiplicative inverse. Okay? Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our commutative property. And then I'm going to probably group my negatives or rearrange. I want to be able to group my negatives and then my positives, or maybe the 6 and the 3 and the 5 and the 2. I don't know. Let's just go ahead and just rearrange these numbers in a different order. Let's do negative 5 over 1 first. Then 1 over negative 3. Then negative 2 over 1, and finally 6 over 1. Okay, that's the commutative property. I did not use any parentheses yet. So next is my associative. So in order to make sure I get credit for doing associative property on my tests, okay, I want to be able to show that I understand this. So I'm going to group the negative 5 over 1 with 1 over negative 3, and I'm actually going to group negative 2 over 1 and 6 over 1. Okay? Now we can actually go ahead and solve the problem. Once we get everything reorganized and we're making sure we're hitting those properties, then we can actually solve it. So if we take the first group, negative 5, and just multiply straight across, we get negative 5 times 1, which is negative 5. 1 times negative 3, that's negative 3. And then the next group, we get negative 2 times a positive 6, that makes it a negative 12 over 1, okay? So then the final step is just to go ahead and multiply these straight across. Negative 5 times negative 12, that's a positive 60. And then negative 3 times a positive 1, that's a negative 3. So same case here, the signs are different, okay? The 60 is positive, 3 is negative. So when you divide these two, your answer is going to be negative, okay? 6 divided by 3 is 2, so 60 divided by 3 would be 20. Okay, let's move on to our next problem. Go ahead and pause this video, write down number 2 on your paper, and then when you have number 2 written, resume play. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is put everything over 1. Okay, now I want you guys to go ahead and do the multiplicative inverse on your own. So if you could do me a favor, pause this video and then resume play when you have it written down. Okay, so this is what you should have gotten, changing the division sign to multiplication and then flipping the next number, which is 5/1 to 1/5. That's taking its reciprocal. Okay, next we're going to do commutative. Now I'm going to keep this video going because I want to make sure you guys do it in my order so we don't have different orders going on here, but of course on your test you'd be able to do any order you want to. So let's go ahead and let's multiply this one, then the 1/5, then let's do 1/1, and then the -10/1. So let's make sure we hit that associative property, and let's group -3/1 with 1/5 times the 1/1 times -10/1. Okay? Let's go ahead and multiply straight across here. So we've got -3 times 1, which is -3. 1 times 5 is +5. Over there we have 1 times -10, which is -10. 1 times 1 is 1. So now when we multiply straight across, we get +30 when we multiply -3 times -10. And 5 times 1 is 5. And 30 divided by 5 is +6. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, go ahead and pause your video and go ahead and write down this problem. Okay, so this one we don't have any division in here, so we are not going to perform the multiplicative inverse, okay? So we do not have to put everything over 1. We are going to start off with the commutative property, and then we're going to do the associative property. And then after that, we're going to solve it. Okay? So let's rearrange these here. Let's do -4.5. And then -1. And then 6. And 2.7 last. Okay, associative, let's go ahead and group them. Let's group our negatives. So -4.5 times -1, and then 6 times 2.7, and that will be our positives, okay? So pause your video, go ahead and multiply the first group, then multiply the second group, and then multiply those two answers together to actually solve, okay? Go ahead and pause your video, do the work, and then resume play when you're ready for your answers. Okay, when you check your answers, make sure that the -4.5 times -1 became a +4.5. And then your final answer should be 72.9. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next problem. Pause your video, write down your problem, please. Okay, so the only thing that we have to do the -8/1. Okay, now let's go ahead and pause your video, do the multiplicative inverse part, and then resume play when you're ready. Okay, so check your work. Now let's do commutative property. Oh, as you notice, I did turn that improper, or did turn that mixed number into improper. So you can go ahead and do that during your multiplicative inverse part. Let's go ahead and let's do 2/1 times -8/1 times -3/8 times 4/-1. Now let's go ahead and use that associative property and group 2/1 times -1 times -3/8 times 4/-1. All right, you guys know what to do. Go ahead and solve this problem. Pause your video, resume play when you're ready for the answers. Okay, so if you did your work correctly, you should have got -16/1 times -12/-8. Multiplying straight across, your result is 192 divided by -8, and when you divide that, you actually get -24.